Well, here we are.
Hi guys.
Welcome, Prisoner Richard. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. What time is it where you are?
It's 7:54 p.m.
Oh, not too bad though. Not too bad.
Yeah. I got myself with my young friend a bit out of sync intellectually about timing. So we're going to go for it now.
Yeah, great. Good.
Hey, thank you to Paul and Genevieve for initiating this and that you're available. I'm grateful to this connection. This is our Marriage Week New Zealand right now. I'm just saying to Paul and Genevieve that my good friends from Family Life New Zealand are running with Marriage Week and doing a great job.
Right.
Because they connect nationwide in a far more effective way, creative way than I can. So they're kind of championing us, which is great. So this will add to it. This will add the international flavour and I see they picked up on one of your quotes for their one of the articles as well. Richard says this from Marriage Week International. Yeah, they're very sharp.
Always scary when you open your mouth and say something.
And in October they're doing a major seminar in Tauranga of 80 couples, which is really that's very exciting as well. Yeah, for my community. Yeah. You know, Richard, welcome. We got 40 minutes now.
Right.
Thank you for being available. Thank you for Paul and Genevieve for coming over and giving me a nudge. James, wake up. Yeah. We're doing it now. Anyway.
Well, this is good, isn't it? Yeah, this is good. This is good. Well done, you. You know, why not?
I was formerly connected quite closely as the regional director for New Zealand Christian Network, which was tied to the International Alliance that you're connected to. And Marriage Week was just on the ledge, on the side issue, but never alive.
Yeah.
And I had a concern for it. They gave it to me. And I've been doing best. Having moved from February, which wasn't working, to September, here we are. Right. So I'm keen to hear, we're keen to hear, my people out there will be keen to hear how this began for you, initially for you and Maria, and what happened. So if you can take a few minutes to explain that, how you got the vision, how you felt to make a start, and some of the threads to connecting to different nations in Europe. But I see Africa has joined South Africa as well. So go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
Well, it's a long time ago, but it's still pretty fresh in my mind. And what happened was a series of different small events and incidents that all together made something exciting happen. And what happened was I was standing in a DIY hardware store buying some paint, and everybody else was. There was a queue, a long queue, you know, as Brits like to queue. And as I was standing there, I looked out and I saw everybody else like me, and I thought everybody's spending all their disposable income fixing up their homes, but nobody ever does anything to fix up the relationship, which is why they have the home in the first place. And so I thought, well, wouldn't it be good if you could do something really positive and exciting? And then at the time I had a job as the director of a charity, a national charity in the UK called the Marriage Resource Trust. And then because I had that job, I called a meeting and all these people turned up because they thought something was going to happen. And they turned up and they said, well, what's the, and I said, well, I think we ought to do something really positive and exciting and dramatic and get the media going and get the government involved. And they all just kind of nodded along like this.
And how many years ago was this?
This was like 1996.
Okay.
A long time ago. And they said, yeah, great. And I said, well, let's do something. And then they kind of smiled at each other because they're all a lot older than me. And they went, well, Richard, how about this? If you do it, we'll support you. So I was a bit younger and a bit more stupid than I am even now. And I said, okay, let's do it. So we decided to call it National Marriage Week, which I didn't really like the name because it sounded like the Coal Board or British Railways or things left over from the post-industrial 70s. But I thought that's okay. And then one guy said we should really, because the meeting we had was in January, and he said we ought to wait and do it for February next year because that way there'd be interest from the media. And I thought, well, I don't want to wait a whole year. But he was right, you know. And so I went along with that. We made a video, a promotional video, and um, fairly easily, we got like 500 churches to all say, yeah, we'll do something Valentine's Day under the brand of Marriage Week, and we'll connect in and identify with this.
500 churches, or different denominations, or just
all different, all sorts, everything you can imagine, and then a few others that weren't really in church at all. So we said, great, you know, and then I had a meeting again with these guys and ladies 3 weeks before the first ever National Marriage Week. And everybody was excited because everybody had got booked to go and speak in this church and do this thing, you know, all that kind of, and they were all really excited. And they said, oh, Richard, this is great. It's all going really well. And I said, well, not so well. And they said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, we've told all these 500 churches that that we're going to run a media campaign to reflect their activity. And they went, yeah, yeah. I said, well, it's not going to happen. And they said, well, why not? I said, well, we haven't got any money, and we don't know how to do things like that. And it's only 3 weeks to go, and it's going to be one of these things that was supposed to be really good, but was actually completely average, if you know what I mean. And I was a bit disappointed. And they said, oh, if you've got hundreds of churches do anything together, that's major achievement. Go home, put your feet up, you know. But I was troubled. I think that's the right word. I was just kind of like, well, this isn't really what it was supposed to be. Me, you're supposed to influence the nation, you're supposed to, you know, set the agenda. I was kind of disappointed. And then I went home, and then the next day I got a phone call. And at the end of the phone call, I said to my wife, our lives will never be the same again. She said, why? Who phoned up? I said, it was a lady who is the secretary to the then Lord Chancellor.
Oh,
he's a really important person in the government in the UK. So he's the Speaker of the Upper House. He's in the cabinet of the Prime Minister, and he's in charge of all the legal work in the UK. And he said, he got her to ring up, and she said, are you doing anything to launch your Marriage Week in London? And I said, oh, this is interesting. And so I said, well, we'd like to, but not at the moment. And she said, well, he's asked me to ask you if this is Her Majesty's government, we put on an event for you, and if we invite all the media to come and all the organizations and put on a lunch afterwards and have your logo as the backdrop, and the minister made a speech at it, would you be free to host it? So it was a bit of a gift, you see. So obviously I said, well, I'll have to check my diary, see if I'm free that day, you know. And then I had a meeting with them about a week before in Whitehall. And I remember there was like a round table, and there was me on this side and 3 on that side. And they were going through all the, you'll step forward and the minister will sit here and you'll sit there, and all this kind of nonsense, you know. And then I said, look, hold on a minute. I said, I said, why are you doing this? I said, because I've done some research and I found out the Lord Chancellor is really important, and we're not important at all. Like, we're so unimportant. I'm working from the garage in my house, and the garage doesn't even have a window. That's how unimportant we are. And you guys, so why are you doing it? And they looked at each other, you know, and scratched their heads a bit. And then one of them, she got finger out, but Mr. Kane, you are National Marriage Week, and Her Majesty's government wants to do this with you. And so I thought, crikey, I've fooled the government into believing something exists that doesn't really exist, you know. Yeah. So anyway, I said, okay. I thought of Mary and Jesus, you know, the birth of Jesus, the nativity. So I thought, I'm Mary. So I said, okay, may it be done according to your will. I've got nowhere else to go, you see. Anyway, that's what happened. They put on this amazing event. All the media came from all over the world, actually, loads of American media and African as well. And it was an amazing event, and we had so much media that we got invited to the industry magazines called PR Week, I discovered, and they have annual awards in the Dorchester Hotel, Park Lane in London, and they invited us along, and we won. We got joint second place for best promotional activity of the year, and the other finalists were Kellogg's, Lego, and Microsoft. And they asked us, what was the budget? You see, and I just said, 50 quid, and they printed it in their magazine. And all the other campaigns had like Saatchi and Saatchi, 5 million quid, like all these big agencies with massive budgets. And then there was ours right at the top, like joint second place, budget 50 quid, which is quite funny. Anyway, all these events, and it made all the churches that had stepped up, these hundreds of churches, it made them all feel really good because they felt like, oh, look, I'm in the news, because it was all over the newspapers. And it really helped, because then you feel like you're part of something which is positive and exciting. And so that we did that, and then we did a photo with the Prime Minister and his wife, and myself and Maria handed over 12 red roses from Marriage Week. That was exciting, and it just went on. If I'm honest with you, James, and then in the subsequent year there was a new Prime Minister, and we started getting people involved, like the Archbishop of Canterbury, leader of the Anglican Church, the Archbishop of Westminster, the Catholic Church, the chief rabbi at the time, and then other people more on the edge of things, like the senior leader of a Sikh community. And so it's always been distinctively a Christian enterprise, but people from other faiths, they make their own contribution, and people who don't have any particular faith, they make a contribution as well. But at its core, it is distinctly Christian. But in my view, the Christian message is a welcoming, accommodating message anyways. And so there's space for everybody within the fold.
Sure. And so what stage did you formalize it and then start to look, or were internationals already there? Or
no, what happened was, we ran it as I've described for 3 or 4 years in the UK, and then I thought, oh, it would be really good if I think a few people, I can't remember how it came, but I met up with Paul Marsh and Genevieve in a conference in Dublin, and there was quite a number of people there who were really involved in family ministries in their countries, and they represented quite a lot. And then also I remember I went to the European Evangelical Alliance conference in Portugal, and I met some people there. And so fairly easily we got a pilot going. I think the first one was in the first year it was both the Czech Republic and Switzerland, and then others got involved, like Hungary was an early adopter, and Germany and America, and Switzerland, Ireland made a good start, but there was a Northern Irish group and an Irish group trying to work together, and they just kept arguing all the time. So that didn't really work very well. Politics, And so and so it just sort of cascaded. And then after a few years, Paul said, look, we should really have an international organization to support all these projects. And I was kind of like, well, what for? And then he made the point, well, obviously you're talking from a position of strength because it's the UK and it's a big country and it's established here. But if you're trying to get started somewhere else, it's really a value to say I'm part of something which is representative of a lot. And I saw the sense in that. So we formed a Swiss international association, and it's and all the national projects, of which there are 25 to 30 now, they all affiliate to the international group. So we're not an organization, we're an association, network of associations. And that's how we got that off the ground. But we've been going a long time now.
So how are you funded in terms of your own funding within the UK? How's that funding? Is it church-based?
Yeah, largely. Obviously, not obviously, but the work I do as a volunteer. So I have a small business that I run, which helps to support that. And then we have a charity we formed, and individuals, they make donations into that. And it's not easy, because it's like you only work 1 week a year. Why would I want to support you? You know, of course, it's not like that, but that's what, you can understand people imagining that.
I run a local marriage ministry based in Tauranga. Day by day, seminars, personal things. The church in Tauranga know who I am, so I've got some credibility locally, but the alliance nationally is not strong. That's why I'm encouraged. Family Life are running with it for the moment, and making an issue. It shrinks with what they're doing, and just makes it a larger. They're championing it more nationally than I can. I'm championing it locally, but it's beyond me. Oh, that's good. And what sort of depth have you seen in terms of churches owning this and using it year by year as a promotional for the year?
Yeah, I think the stars in. I mean, that's a good question, because that's what you want. What you want is church networks and individual churches to have a real sense of ownership. And in some ways, we have done that, because I remember right at the beginning, all these vicars and church leaders would ring up going, well, what's the curriculum? What are you going to teach? And we'd go like, well, what do you want to teach? And they go, oh, there must be a curriculum. And we'd go like, no, there mustn't. Because actually, if you want to start a movement, what you do is you don't provide a resource, you don't provide a curriculum, and you let people find their own curriculum, and then they own it themselves rather than spoon feeding. If you want to, I think of it as orbital growth as opposed to linear. And there are organizations, they provide resources all the time, and you buy them, and it helps with their funding, and we know who they are. But I prefer the idea that, if you kind of have to dig deep and find your own resources, you have a much higher level of ownership, and it's your thing. And I guess the stars in that would have to be Germany. They kind of are so beautifully disorganized in an organized way. So they kind of, like, in regions, they have their own committees, they have their own Facebook groups, they have their own website. So it's evolved right down like that. I don't even know if they have a national organization anymore. And so to answer your question, that so many churches in Germany have a real ownership of the project. They feel like it's theirs. They've never heard of myself or Paul or anybody like that.
Okay.
Fine with me. They just think, oh, it's Marriage Week, off we go. In fact, I met a couple once when I was in Switzerland who I said, oh, this is a nice house. They said, yeah, our other house is in the Bermuda. So I said, oh, that's nice. I said, oh, we run a Marriage Week in Bermuda. And they said, like, what did you say? I said, oh, I'll tell them again. They go like, we went to a Marriage Week event last week in Bermuda. And I said, oh, that's interesting. I said, because I founded that way back. And they were like, no. And I said, well, yes, my point is the thing takes on a life of its own, and that's what you want, really. So we're not restrictive, saying you have to use this curriculum. It has to be on these dates. It's not rigid, it's open, life-giving.
I my hope was I used to do a full double-page feature in our local paper, which was a regional paper,
Oh, great.
trying to communicate what the church is doing. But I struggled to get the church to come along with it, to actually initiate. What are you doing? Just, are you running an alpha marriage course? Are you doing this? What are you doing for pre-marriage? What are you doing for preparing young couples for marriage and so forth? And I haven't had the feedback. The church knows me well in Tauranga.
Yeah.
I've got good connections, but it didn't materialize as I thought they would do. We wasn't trying to make some uniform thing. I even tried to encourage, be careful what I say here, churches in a part of the community to work together.
Yeah.
Work together, do something in your community there. In terms of John 17, that we might be one, he may be a witness, right? And that's still a reasonable goal from my point of view. My time frame is getting short to achieve that.
Right.
So that's what I'm thinking of, because alpha marriage is well regarded.
Yeah.
But alongside that, we do these live weekend seminars here as well, you see, which adds another value because they're live. They have Kiwi couples sharing their story, sharing their lives, and couples come together in a crowd and just do. They're in the crowd together, but there is a couple, and no one. It's a nice venue, nice environment, but it's them engaging with each other, which is great.
Yeah. Well, you do what you can. I mean, there is an argument which is it's easier to do a big thing than a small thing, particularly in an area which is like slightly awkward, the couple relationship, and so there's a sense of safety if it's a national thing or something, because everybody's doing that. But equally, small beginnings are great, because it works and forges links and
initially,
as long as it works. I'm sorry, James.
Initially, I saw what you were doing, and we have a national day in February, Waitangi Day, which is a significant day. It's a challenge even to get people together for that. So Marriage Week around Valentine's Day, a week later, was always a struggle. Most things take place in New Zealand. I was thinking more that pre-marriage was a high issue of concern. In New Zealand, many weddings are taken by secular celebrants with no church involvement at all. And I was looking to see if we can reclaim that ground to say, look, the church is the best place to come for preparation for your marriage. We're not going to. We can do it well for you. But most weddings take place in December to June.
Oh, do they?
So aligning with Australia in September seemed good as a launch to the incoming next season of marriages.
Good.
That would seem more reasonable to me because Valentine's Day just wasn't working. We can still do some small things for Valentine's Day, encourage couples to go out and have dinner and whatever. But it seemed that September made better sense from our point of view.
Yeah. Well, it's the same.
I think that's the same in approach here.
It's the same in a few other places. Like in South Africa, they do it in September.
That's right.
In Ukraine, there was always in the old Eastern Europe, they always had a sort of a government-sponsored Day of the Family in March or April every year, and there was always a bit of a conflict because the proximity in dates between the marriage week in February and the date of this old thing, and they kind of always had a bit of a drama going on, and I think the Russian one won in the end.
Okay. Right, and so where you're not just Northern Hemisphere, it's Africa. You're also in the Caribbean. Is that right? Or am I misreading this?
Well, possibly.
Apart from you see Germany are kind of doing well.
Germany are doing great. Hungary, Romania, Albania, Slovakia, Croatia. help me, Paul. Where else?
So
Sorry?
USA are a big player.
USA, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the USA are amazing, you know, as usual, and it's interesting. I mean, yeah, and on we go, and we're just trying to get it started in Portugal, and been over there, encourage them a little bit, and we'd love to get the thing flying in South America, because I think the South Americans really like it. You know, they love to get out and celebrate and have fun, don't they? So yeah, on we go, really.
What we know there's some change. You'll have seen change in terms of the way governments see marriage and so forth, and that
Yeah.
Different views than we would have had back in 1996, for example.
Yeah.
Do you still have strong governmental support? Can you still approach the local mayor or an MP in your nation or has that changed at all?
Well, it's harder than it used to be,
Right.
you know. So particularly in my country, you know, it's a real awkward agenda. But in other countries, it's less so. Like in most other countries, I think the hardest countries are the UK and Holland, you know,
Okay.
for reasons you can imagine. Like in Holland, they've got 36 statutory definitions for what a couple can be. So that's a hard environment in which to do something which
wave the flag and get your attention. That's right.
Yeah, which has the appearance or sounds quite conservative. Now, in reality, it might not be as conservative as people imagine, but that's the impression, particularly using the M word, you know. So that's a difficulty. But in other places, I just kind of go like, well, let's go to where the grass is growing, you know. And it's like Bulgaria and Bulgaria. Since they've started doing for Marriage Week in Bulgaria, the level of divorces have dropped over 30%.
Wow, that's huge. See, that's
massive.
That's huge.
And likewise in other places, you know, and part of the strength of Marriage Week, which is often overlooked, is that it creates an agenda that means it's okay to talk about what do you have to do to have a happy marriage. You know, I remember one time I did this interview in London a few years back, and they always do a pre-interview interview, you know, if it's important, kind of radio, you know. And she said to me, "Oh, what's this all about, Mr. Kane? Why do we need a National Marriage Week?" And I said, "Well, why not?" You know. And so we went through all that, and then she said to me, "Isn't it you want to get everybody talking about what do you have to do to have a happy marriage?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "Wow," and I felt like a lean into the phone. She went, "I need to tell you, a big success." I said, "Is it?" She went, "Yeah," because she said, all morning in our newsroom, we haven't done any work. We've just been talking about what do you have to do to have a happy marriage.
Fair enough.
And I said, "Is that right?" She said, "Yeah, but don't tell anybody." But that's what all of a sudden it like opens the box.
The ice,
right. Oh yeah, we're communicating better than we used to, and a period of reflection just to consider your relationship and the vows you've made and things like that has got to be a good thing.
When I attend the family life seminars in Tauranga, and I see the young men coming all very nervous on the Friday night. By Saturday morning, they're just at ease. The ice is broken. They're thinking, they're starting to hug their wives and draw close to each other and be more free. It's just just remarkable.
And also,
that's what you're saying.
Like,
Ordinary.
and also,
It's real.
Yeah, and if you open up the box and you go, well, let's have a look at what's inside, what are the components here? What do you need? It might be that some couples decide, well, we're living together. We've talked about getting married, but actually not really 100% that it's you. So let's split up. And lots of people go, that's a bad thing. Well, it might be it's a good thing, because it might be that you have to somehow give people the courage to walk away, as well as the courage to invest more, to find out where they are, I did a wedding once, and the groom was a friend of mine, still is, and he was like a rowing guy, so he was really tall and muscular, really buffed up, and of course all his mates were as well, and they all turned up, all these big men, like you see. And I spoke at this wedding about the difference between cohabitation and marriage, and I just chatted a little bit, and did the vows and happy days. And then we had a few drinks in the evening, had a party, had a swim in the sea. It was in Spain, did all that. And then I realized over the course of the afternoon, the evening, and the next morning, it seemed like every single one of these young men came up to me and they all said the same thing. They all said, I'm living with this girl, but I know I don't want to be with her long term, but I just can't get out of it because we share a flat, we share our bills. Who's the one who becomes homeless? So I'm just going along with it, and there's no exit. I haven't got an exit, and they'd all got themselves into this situation, and like we're all stuck. It was really sobering and sad, all the joy had gone. They were just kind of like,
I won't take a wedding today unless I can do pre-marriage counsel with the couple over several sessions. But occasionally, I've been asked. I've taken 4 Filipino weddings in the last 12 months, and I just couldn't in the time. But they came to the seminar afterwards.
Did they?
Seminar, paid the full price, and loved it. I thought, well, I invested well. They realised they need to invest. My friend from Fabulous, I've used the parallel of getting a warrant of fitness for your car.
Yeah.
Your marriage may be fine, but it just needs refreshing. It just needs a tune-up. And it's a very good parallel.
And I think also,
assuming they see the value of marriage and you're not locked into some other awkward relationship. That's right.
Yeah, James, also I think like if you as a couple, if you go, we're going on a marriage weekend, or we're going to go and spend an hour speaking to James, or we're going to read a book together, or whatever it is, if you do that, even if you don't learn anything, what you are communicating to each other is, you're really important to me and my marriage is. So there's an implicit, unspoken sense of dedication, which is really important. So even if you don't learn anything, your marriage will be improved anyway, because you've made this unspoken kind of message, which is really valuable.
And the children are watching.
Oh, yeah.
That's right,
Yeah, they do. We see everything.
The figures the government, every year the government projects the figures on marriage and divorces and how many children are affected under the age of 17 by divorce. It's quite powerful.
Who does that? The government. The government.
They produce it every year. So you can see, not just, and of course we know that people don't always marry, they're just living, they're coexisting. But at least those who are married legally, when they're divorced, it does show how many children are affected. And I try to use that as a provocation. Say, look, your children are watching.
And they're doing a really interesting. The government in Hungary are doing a really interesting experiment at the moment, which nobody else in the world is doing. But it would be classic.
I met the Hungarian ambassador at the meeting in Auckland last year. He was really keen to see what we were doing. Yeah. So obviously, what's the experiment?
Well, I might not have the figures exactly right, but I'm led to believe that in Hungary, if you marry as opposed to cohabit, the government gives you 30,000 euros in cash, which is a lot of money. And obviously, there's abuse. People will marry and then divorce.
Yeah,
but, they'll spend the money. And then on the birth of your 3rd child, they give you another wallop of 25,000 euros or something.
Wow.
And it just incentivizes. And as I've spoken about this, lots of people have said to me, "Oh, I'd get married for 30 grand." Do you know what I mean? Because it'd be a deposit on a house, and then they laugh. And that's absolutely right. It would be a deposit on a house. It would help the couple have some stability and think, "Oh, we can have children," and on they go. Anyway, the only country in the world which is doing this is Hungary, and all the countries around it aren't doing it. So you've got a control group. So watch this space, because I think you'd be interesting to see if it encourages Hungarian young people to stay in Hungary rather than to emigrate for work. And it'd be interesting to see if the birth rate increases or not. And then it'd be interesting to see if those couples that marry will be more stable over the longer term than otherwise. And of course, the next place where it'd be perfect to run an experiment like this would be New Zealand, because New Zealand has a long history of doing pioneering work in social policy and having a go at things, you know. Right. So maybe you ought to.
I saw that China was looking to China's birth rate is declining, and India is now growing faster than China was.
Oh, yeah.
They're looking to tweak marriage, because couples are not marrying in China. They're saying what you're saying. They're trying to encourage them, as I understand.
Well, the birth rate needs to be, well, a woman needs to have 2.2 children in her lifetime for the birth rate to stand still. And I don't know what it is in New Zealand, but in Europe, we're just falling off a ledge. You know, we're hopeless at breeding. You know, even Italy, the home of the big family, are about 0.9 or something. I mean, terrible numbers. And Ukraine, before the war, their reproduction rate was about 0.5 or something. I mean, really low, catastrophically low. And then,
Richard, sorry.
Well, the only countries that aren't in decline in terms of birth rate are India and Africa.
Right. We've got about 10 minutes left on this 40-minute clock that we've brought into here. Have any questions that you come to mind that from you, Paul, that you can throw into the conversation?
Yeah, don't make them too hard. Paul, you know, it's only 9:30 in the morning.
I want questions that people that in Tara and New Zealand would find that.
So what do you think somebody would do, Richard, that's listening and they go, you know, I'd really like to get involved in this and line up with this marriage week time and just offer something for couples? What do you think they should do?
Well, they could just, at the lowest level, they could just have their friends around, have a barbecue, and everybody bring a tale, like a marriage story, you know, some kind of story that is uplifting and encouraging and inspirational, you know, about, it's like I could tell a story about the couple I met who had been married for 71 years, you know, that's a good little story, you know, everybody's got a story. Yeah, and sure. So it's back to the thing on curriculum. This is not about curriculum, it's about celebration. So let's just stop going like, oh, I have to use this in order to be instructive and teach. No, it's about like, oh, let's encourage people to step back a little bit and go, yeah, this is a good thing. You know, I appreciate what I'm in, you know. That's
part of my motivation. Sorry, carry on. Part of my motivation is that my own parents were married for 70 years.
Yeah, long time.
And but my 9 brothers and sisters and I haven't done so well. So no. To me, I want to honor my parents. Yeah. Part of my motivation of what I'm doing. And I've also had 15 years of working in the prisons, and I've seen the brokenness there as well. Oh, yeah, so that's part of what stirs me. I also had 13 years teaching Bible school. We're hearing the testimonies of these broken young lives who are coming to study and seek the Lord. Yeah. Brokenness there. These things that stirred me when the opportunity came to do what I'm doing.
Very good. Very good. I remember in the first few years in the UK, we ran this competition to find the marriage that had lasted the longest in Britain. Right. Yeah. And we found this old couple in a nursing home in Leicester who'd been married for 71 years, which at the time was a bit of a record. Obviously, people are living longer, and it's not that uncommon now. But anyway, they got all the media descends on this nursing home, this poor old couple, and they interviewed the wife on BBC Radio for the Today program, which is like the flagship thing, goes on in the morning, and she was brilliant on the radio. I mean, so good that they replayed her interview a few days later, which I've never heard of them doing ever again. She was great. Unfortunately, her husband was kind of like not long for this world, and he was a little fragile, you know. Anyway, after marriage week and all the media and everything, we sent them a bouquet of roses as a thank you and a card, you know. And unfortunately, the week after marriage week, the husband died, you see, for whatever reason. So I thought, oh no, I can see the headline now: killed by National Marriage Week. You know, all right. So anyway, I wrote, and a son of the couple, he replied charmingly, and he said, look, this had been a great end to their marriage and his life, and he loved it, and they were believers, and this was great. So this was like a lovely little story about ending of a marriage. And then a couple of years after, I was speaking at this event in Stormont in Northern Ireland, in the government building there for the launch of Marriage Week in Northern Ireland. And a bishop had brought along two elderly couples for the same kind of reason. One of them had been married 55 years, and the other one 62. And so stupidly thought, oh, I'll tell that story about the the couple that I've just told you. So I was speaking there, you see, and I got into this story. And as I got into the story, I suddenly remembered that it ends with him dying, which is not a good end for these couples that we're identifying with. So I just thought, oh no, I've dug myself a great big hole here. So I had these two parallel things going on in my head. The first one was like, keep telling the story, and the other one was like, stop telling the story because it can only get worse. But yeah, that's my story of a 71.
No, I've seen some, what we do here with the seminar, things I did. I've seen some lovely things happen. It's by me.
Yeah.
I ran a very low-key pre-marriage counselor and post-marriage using a diagnostic tool I use. And just seeing some breakthroughs is just so encouraging.
Yeah. Well, so, that's right.
It keeps you alive and keeps you championing this. And I'm sure other parts of church leaders see what they see as well. But I just find it so inspiring after seeing so much brokenness across the nation. Hey, we're coming to the close of our time, but I really appreciate we've pulled this together, and we could have missed it. We'll make this available tomorrow.
Great.
Talk to my young techno friend, and
they'll do all the wisdom.
Any final things from?
No, I think this is good. You did a good job, Ben.
Yeah, it's good.
Thank you, Richard, for all the wisdom you shared.
That's right.
Okay. All the best, then, guys.
Paul, it's just been good to hear the story, and it's. I might email you for some more details. That's okay. But it's been good just to talk freely and have this available for a larger audience.
I'm happy to help.
Hey, thanks for your time.
Okay, you guys, all the best. Yeah, bye-bye.
Bless you, brother. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Yep.